Oh, there's a red thing.
Yes, we are live. Hello and welcome to Might and Delight's fireside interview. We were here a month ago with Jacob, the creative director, and since then a lot have happened. Oh, now I need to mute that. And since that a lot have happened, we have released Shelter 3 about elephants, and now we're focusing on our next big thing, Book of Travels, that will be out summer sometime. I know we'll get questions about that. So instead, I'm here with Dennis, who is the game writer. Or maybe introduce yourself, Dennis. What do you do at Might and Delight?
I'm a writer. So me and Helen write the narrative, the lore, dialogues, everything. Basically, I wouldn't just say text because it's a very visual narrative, but all the writing.
Yeah. So anything you want to know about the writing, you should write in the comments and I will ask Dennis your questions. Also, follow Might and Delight on all our social media below and follow this channel. We try to do a monthly update with things that happens in the studio to keep you updated. And I should try to focus on both talking and reading, which occasionally may be problematic. Okay, so Dennis, a game writer, what does that mean in reality? Do you sit and write the cultures or the narrative? What do you do?
It's different for every game. This is rather original game because the game almost started like a visual project, like a fantasy with almost only visual storytelling. And that's kind of, that culture keeps going. Might and Delight is sort of very art and graphic, expressive. So my work is basically to complement the art and the storytelling with my writing and my input. But I'm basically using the art to fuel the storytelling. And I'm using. I mean, it's a lot goes into it. I take what they have created and I have to probe into the background and what happens now and what each character, the dialogue, what the NPCs say, and all those things. So yes, it's a multifaceted answer.
So you get the luxury of getting one of Jacob's, who is the artist, one of his magical images, and you can find them on Instagram also if you want to, and be like, what's happening here? Who are these people? What's the situation? What's the background like? Is that your job? Looking at images, imagining why people are there?
Kind of. It's very much of a team effort. It's hard. It's almost like I'm one of the players on the pitch, and the artists and the 3D artists and the sound people are doing their things, and we've sort of created this world that you see behind me here from scratch, and it kind of evolves on all fronts at the same time. So one of my major tasks, I think, is to make sure that when we make stories, everything goes together. So there's no crossing lines. Like there's nothing. Every world, every piece of fiction has its own kind of contract with the reader or the player, and make sure that everything fits together. So it's not what you might think, that I sit and invent stories. Oh, it was this king who did that, or that's the background and this thing. It's kind of being a history, an archaeologist, but I bring out the facts from other people's brains and combine them. I'm sorry, this answer is very sort of fluffy, but I don't think there's a straight one.
No, I like
Keep
it.
probing me with questions and see, maybe I can
I think it's a good answer. So it's not right. It's like writing the cultures, basically. That this culture, one part of it, maybe writing cultures. Like if you have the culture here, if you come to this part of the world, you meet these type of people, and they have this history, and they have this fashion due to this and this kind of culture.
Yes. Stuff like that. And for instance, the religion, there's a religion, they're praying to the 4 winds. Mm-hmm. It's actually 8 winds, but the half winds are kind of nasty, so they don't pray to them. So I might come up with, the 4 winds exist as an idea, as a religion, and there are some snippets that the creative director and other people sort of have put into their lore document, and I might flesh it out and say, how would they Is there a priesthood? I will fill in some of the gaps to make all this world work, because as soon as I start writing dialogue of what people say to each other and how they speak, I need to know more facts, even that the players will know or find out, because every storytelling, everything that someone says is only the tip of the iceberg. And you can't just write dialogue, oh, this person says that. They have all the knowledge of what lies beneath what they say, and that has to be sort of correct. Otherwise, we run the risk of someone saying something, I don't know, the Black Hills of Umbar, but they're actually red hills when someone else. Everything has to be from the correct source. See what I mean? Everything.
So you're like,
I need to know everything. I have this great index. When I started here, I actually started to do a book of travels index where I just added all the facts and all the data and all the lore that we had to make sure that, okay, this is kind of the truth. So when we mention something like this, like the village of Myr and who is the magician there and stuff, all those facts are always the same. Everything has to be kept track of. So that's one part.
Yeah. So how big is like your book of travels, this dictionary with like truth in, I don't know, in pages or in gigabyte or in like documents? Because it seems like
it's growing every hour. I haven't counted the pages. I've kind of made a Wikipedia so I can search things, because my plan is that I will have this Wikipedia, and if someone asks me, because I don't have that great memory, I can always look up like, oh, who was the son of this cobbler that kept falling into the pond? Oh, it was this person. And then the team can go in there when they want to, but there's a lot, and one day some of it will probably go into some kind of lore book or something for the players as well. It also contains a lot of secrets, because this game is about revealing the world and finding out the world. You won't be told in this world this and this and that. Everyone arrives as a traveler. No matter what kind of character you create, you arrive on the shore somehow. Often it hasn't been your choice to travel, and then you basically don't know anything, just what you see. You can't even read the writing. You have to learn some stuff. You have to unlock the world, and that's kind of the key. So everything I write, no one might even never come across it, but it has to, have to fit in. The world has to work.
There will be like fragments, and we have a question from Louise here. Is it, how difficult is it to place the story within that is an underlying history? Is it like fun, or do you go home and like I
have 45 minutes walk back and forth to work, so I have a lot of time to think. But it's the game is rather interesting, because the chapter 0 that we're working on now, the game itself doesn't have a story that the player drives. The player isn't this big hero. The player is a nobody that appears on the shore. So the world in the beginning is basically moving along its own paces. The player is walking around among events that brings the world story forward, but it's going to be very rare for the players to actually push it into some major degree. So I would say this game is more like a game master that lets you role play with other players, and that's one of the aspirations for this game, is not to be this checklist. Many games, I'm going to start this game, I'm going to do the quest, and I'm going to check the quest, and I'm going to finish the game or something. This game is about creating this world where you walk around and the game is actually role playing with other characters. The game world is the background. Now everything has a story, and characters and NPCs will evolve. I don't know if I answered the question. It is actually quite challenging, because being a fan of RPGs, it's so easy to fall into writing these sort of quest lines, and this happens, and the player does this, and blah, 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 blah. But this is not what this game is about foremost. It's a world that caters for you role-playing together with other characters. And the role-playing and your social teamwork as you grow and expand and have your own life experience for your character, that is the key. That's what we want to focus on. And only later will we explore deeper you call it a single player arcs that you could sort of go into, but the main idea is to make it a sort of an explorative self-expression role-playing, where actually the character you choose, of course you choose different skills and abilities, but the game will also hold you a bit to that. So okay, you're this peaceful wanderer, you are putting your hand on your sword a little bit much for a wanderer. Maybe the world starts not seeing you as this peaceful wanderer. We're exploring ideas where we want to make role-playing. People have to own up. Okay, if you wanted to play this wise person, you make a lot of stupid mistakes. It's just exploring role-playing mechanics as well as the softer.
Wow, that's. I'm going to throw some questions at you because they're all like, and I want to explore a lot more of what you're saying here also. But since you said it's a lot about talking to your friend, like role playing with others, do you know this? I don't know if this even is your area of expertise, but will there be a way to meet up and play with your friends, or is it completely coincidental? And if you don't know, you can say pass or something.
Well, that's definitely a goal that we have, because that's what you want, right? You want to play with your friends, and we're looking at ways to be able to find them. Because when you play this game, you want to say, on Thursday, let's meet together and play for a few hours. And there's several challenges. The world is quite big. How do you travel to the same place? And stuff like that. So I can't make any promises, but that is the inclination and our hopes, that the strength of the game is to be able to choose who to play with and when.
So maybe when we're all tired of meeting over Zoom and other things, we can instead go in and meet and have tea in Book of Travels.
Definitely.
I have another here from Mar, who wondering about the narrative and this with quest. And if quest doesn't exist, how do people discover longer narrative beats? Or maybe this isn't like the aim even to discover them, or like you're going to role play amongst yourself and then things happen.
There are quests. There are people who wants things, who might give you a good deal for something, or there are challenges that you can sort of help and solve, and there'll be some evidence to be collected to drive the world on. But the quests that you will be mainly sort of influencing directly will be more personal ones that centers around you, your character, and your exploration. And then the world it's almost like the players, if they do the right things, can collect a lot of sort of evidence and stuff to push things. But again, they are not these heroes. They are more the lower end. They won't be this high flying dragonborn who leads the charge at the front. That's for season 150
so if you,
or something. So it's gonna. I mean, you'll be part of the world and you'll see it evolve, but it's gonna evolve over time.
And I'm guessing this is the answer to this question as well. If the world goes on regardless of what the character does, like, because we established we're not the chosen one. No one here is going to save the world. Like, you don't have this special little mark on your arm, or however you are the chosen one. Like, how does this work?
No, it's basically the story is written. The NPCs have stories. The world has a story that has an arc that we plan that this is going to happen, and you can, depending on what you do, it's just going to keep rolling. So if you're in season 1, 2, 3, that's what's happened in season 0, 1, 2. That's going to happen. The world will evolve, and you might have little fractions where you can make a difference for yourself, or maybe even for the what happens in the grander scale. But that's sort of very rare. It's not driven that way.
I'm guessing you decided to go with, like, it's a design choice here, that you are ordinary people like we are here. We're just following the world, and some of us occasionally make a little difference, but most of us.
Yeah, and also it's a multiplayer game. So if someone rescues the princess and then someone else comes with the princess, I mean it's a multi-layered game. Design is about taking the mechanics and what experience you want and building it into a realistic framework. And it's a very interesting topic actually about what an RPG is. And I've come from a long experience in being a GM for pen and paper role-playing games, which is very different. And the big difference has happened, I think, with computer RPGs is they are more computer games than role-playing games. Because a role-playing game, here are the players, and they want to play, and the game master, at least the way we play, is basically catering for you and describing the world, and you are sort of leading with a bit of hints and pushes for the player, like, but softly. But a computer game will give you these breadcrumbs, because games now are made, we can't bore the player, or they can get lost, and they need to have this quest where they have to check boxes. And I think games become shopping lists. And gamers are looking forward to a game because they want to play it, but then as soon as they start, they want to complete it, and they want to eat, they want to chew through the things. And this is not the experience we are looking for. We are looking for something where you just want to, okay, hold on, who's here? Who am I? What's going on? And kind of, it sounds abstract. It's really hard to describe it. But
I like it. I like the who wants to play a shopping list? Then we can play I don't know, a mobile game where you flip stuff away. Here, I'm guessing you want to experience the game instead.
We want the role playing to be in focus, and I know it's archaeology maybe, but if you look at even Baldur's Gate, the first one and the second one, the first one didn't lead you almost anywhere. You can go anywhere. It leads you a bit by people saying, oh, there's trouble here, and you can choose to go or not. But the second one then was more force-fed you the quests, and it's almost like the first game was an RPG made on a computer, but the second one, because I can't remember, 3-4 years later, it became a computer game that was an RPG, not an RPG on a computer. So I see it's kind of as if you take Baldur's Gate 1 and Meadow, maybe. And because Meadow is basically, you'd go on an adventure, it's very obscure, and you travel with other people and you have experiences. That depends a lot on what the other people do as well. And if we could find the essence and making that worthwhile and connected with quests and the world, and I mean, it's an exploration in the process when we're making it. And it's fascinating, but it makes it hard for me, a writer. I don't generally write narratives like these forces do this and the player is there and pulls things. It's more writing around what the players do and then connect with them.
Yeah, and creating this huge wiki. I love that kind of document. So in a way, you're I don't know, Tolkien, who's writing the Simarillion, the background story, and then the players get to explore the world as the hobbits or whatever. No.
In a way, it is something almost like the game master who writes the world. So me and Helen, luckily I've heard, because we can bounce a lot of ideas, because I would never want to have one person be responsible for this the tone and everything. But we're building out the world, we're building out the characters and expanding on it, and then comes the game development from the side, and we're matching it up, and sort of, it's very sort of fingertip feeling of how the balance is going to be. So it's super exciting. I've never worked on anything like it, and I think a non-indie studio would be terrified, because we can't promise these feature lists, because we don't really know exactly it's going to end up. We just know what we want it to feel like. We want to be able to go in there and explore and take our own time, and not be chasing quest lists for the sake of finishing the game, but engaging in things that can grow our character and meet other people. And because as a TMO, you want this surprise. I mean, one of the things that this game started, one of the core ideas was basically 2 groups meet on a road, 2 or 3 people. Do they put their hands on the swords or not? What happens? Just that tension, who are these? What do they want? Is it? And then these things, the meetings, and not having 100 people standing on the square trying to sell, ring mail underpants for the lowest price. Try and make this really matter.
When you do playtest with this is something new and a bit different? Are you nervous, or have you done playtest? I'm thinking there's a beta at some point. I'm not going to say the date, but are you, when players hit your world, is it nervousness, or are you happy, or what happens?
You always feel no, but it's not ready yet. It's interesting. There was an early access a while ago, and we learned a lot. I wasn't actually hired then, but I was kind of helping out as an advisor and things. So every feedback that we get for our players is very, very worthwhile, because we have our own ideas and we're trying it and we're looking at it from a certain angle. And whenever we get feedback from the players, it's super helpful. We get, we have these, request things, and it's super useful. So, but we playtest with. I'm supporting the game designers. We sit in the same room, so we might say, okay, let's go in Myr and meet by the chickens, and we'll run around and find this bandit camp, see if they're around. And they might be bugs, so we don't find them, but then we find something. This cave is amazing, and yeah, you can feel it, even if it's not finished. You can feel that when it works. Yes.
Okay, so it's like, yes, now we got the feeling, and you're like,
yes, it's super exciting.
Wow.
Terrifying as well, because it's kind of new.
Yeah.
But we also have this way now. If we were doing this game, 5-10 years ago, we'd have to finish it on a disc and send it out, and we couldn't sort of work with it. Now that we have early access, and we sort of, it's part of a creative process where we can, adjust
I'm also
and expand, because it depends on wilderness. We want people to get lost. Do we go? Is it closer to go through the forest? Have you gone through the forest? It's terrifying. Yeah, but we want it to be, as it scales up, it's gonna, yeah.
I'm also gonna ask Henrik's questions below, like what lore inspirations are the most interesting to you since this is kind of new then, and it's something you're trying to achieve, like something a bit unconventional. What inspirations do you have? Like I mentioned Tolkien a bit, and you mentioned Baldur's Gate. Is there something else?
I wonder if Enrique wonders about the forms in the game that's already been sort of shown in some of the videos, like the moss walkers and the larkers and the ribboned, and they're all very different. It's really interesting. I was involved in writing the little poems. I have like a 3-line poem to describe the core of them.
If there's anyone who doesn't know what a forms is, should we say short what a form is?
A form would be like a character class in another game, but this is more, we call it a form because it is a bit more of their personality and their lifestyle, as well as, of course, of what skills they'll have to choose from and so on. I don't know. The moss walker is pretty cool.
And what's a moss walker? Then you'll have to explain. I'm sorry.
It's just someone who's kind of connected to nature in some ways. It's a bit mysterious. I wouldn't say the Green Man, but the lore is very original in this game. We've taken inspirations from a lot of places. Some key ones are Ursula K. Le Guin's the Wizard of Earthsea for the spirituality and stuff like that. And then we are looking a lot of sort of in Eastern and from the East, from India, from 1001 Nights, even some Japanese things. But we are careful to try and explore something that is very original, because the game is original. As soon as you put in tropes like too many classic, like elves and dwarves, it's going to ruin that original, that new feeling. This is a world that I don't really know what's happening. Who am I? And make it, as soon as you can use tropes and archetypes as shortcuts. It works fine if you need it. But here we have to be really careful with that, because it might create expectations that we don't want to deliver. Man, it sounds very vague, but it's kind of how we operate. And even the visual style is very different. You've seen the machines. Like there's been an older culture called the Elden, which had left machinery like steam engines and things that people are still can work, because this actually, the world is kind of a place where human life is very precious. There is not that many people. Is the food and shelter and just living a normal life is kind of quite hard. So everyone is a precious person, and a machine. Most fantasy games, like machinery comes and it's evil. Here it's actually a very helpful, beneficial thing. Just little different things like that. And every person is kind of polite and friendly. It's very spiritual. They have ancestor worship and the winds as this kind of core religions, which means that you don't want to shame your ancestors. So it's rather a friendly world when it comes to citizen and villagers and things. There isn't sort of this bitter hatefulness. There is darkness, of course. I mean, it's humans. There's going to be conflict. But it's a nice. I feel many fantasy games have this sort of hostile tone almost. Everyone challenges you. Who are you? Get out of here! Blah blah blah. Who do you think you are? But here it's different. You respect strangers until they behave badly, and you know you can get help if you're wounded. You don't have to maybe pay for someone might actually take pity on you and help you out. Stuff like that. Create like a different, more interesting world. And also then when the darkness comes, the contrast will be the greater.
Even more. We have here a question about religion. Are the gods playing a big role in everyday life? And can players become followers, believers of separate gods, or will that have special gameplay effects? I'm thinking when you talk about ordinary people, that like, you know, when are people believers here, and how does this kind of manifest?
This is interesting. It's also a spoiler alert here. The Asken folk, I can say as much as I dare.
Yeah.
Before the creative director comes in and drags me away. So there aren't, let's say, gods as you would say maybe in an Indian religion or something. They pray to the four winds generally. Every wind has a special energy. They actually have a bit of creative spark. So if the wrong crosswinds cross, they might actually create some nasty spirits and things walking around, creating trouble. But the winds, they govern the weather, which is because it's a farming community. It's very important. And being born under a certain wind can give you certain qualities and so on. So the winds, some mystics or magicians, there are some different classes. The ones who have a high affinity with the winds are called wind voices. And they're almost like priests of the winds. They travel around and you can ask them for help. And then you have the ancestor worship. But then there is something called Sephra, which are really hard to talk about because they are nature spirit gods, but they really have no rules. If someone can tell you how a Sephra behaves, then that's not going to be a Sephra.
Yeah.
And those spirits, people can contact them. They can walk into the woods or the place where the Sephra exists if they dare. But I can't say much more than that.
But they can be, yes.
They can be stupidly smart. They could be kindly evil. They can be benignly violent. The problem often when we talk about gods and things, when we systemize things, so of course we have to have a behavior in a system, but we also want to keep mystery, because so much of fantasy, and actually Ursula K. Le Guin said this in one of her writings about fantasies, fantasy has now been such formulaic that fantasy is almost the least imaginative writing. Everyone follows the same steps. You know, you have the party and the Black Riders come and you cross it's kind of, and we want to really try and bring back some mystery and that's where the exploration becomes interesting, because, and this is why my job becomes very hard. Well, I can talk about my job, but I can't really explain too much about what the things are more than the way I'm trying to do now. And I apologize if I sound a bit vague.
No, I think it's great, and you're also you're allowed to be vague. The game isn't out yet. We don't want to spoil things, and we just want to build the hype and give people a little bit. And I think it's been something in one of our Steam posts. We update Steam bi-weekly about Sephras also. So if you're more interested, you should check it out there. But yeah, people are excited here about this. That it's this is how fate works, that it's nature gods and so on. And I like the kind of new take here. So let's see. God, now I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm trying to look at the questions and ask questions. But yeah, they of course, to see if I had something. Yeah, they had. No, I was kind of like when you walk home at night, your 45 minutes walk from the office to your home. Are you then like? Are you starting to think like, oh, this was these two winds that crossed? This meant that this feeling. You know, how in the story are you? Like, if I wake you 2 a.m. and like, okay, you're like,
Oh
yes,
no,
this is
Sephra.
Sarah.
Um,
Like, I'm thinking if you're doing this, you must be really kind of worked up in your life here.
it's a mix. Because I also do this high level stuff. I also do down to earth, like, okay, these fishermen and the smugglers are talking together and trying to make a deal, and I'm making the dialogues and making those little plot points. So it's not that often that I kind of focus on one thing, I think. Yeah, it comes and goes. I mean, everything is inspiring. And we live on the office is in this island, right? So there's trees and woods, and there's like deer walking on the road sometimes. And that makes you think, like, that's how it should feel. Like, there's a deer between two cars. That's not natural. What do? Do you put an apple on the ground or run away screaming? See what happens. That would be like me meeting a Sephra, probably, because they are also can work through animals, and yeah, it's interesting. It's a kind of a shame in a way, because when I'm building up the mystery of a Sephra, there's also a spirit world, by the way, which is like where the dead go and maybe they come back. I don't know.
So if you die in
the
your
more
dream, or am I allowed to? No. Okay, there's a spirit world with the
let's
dead.
talk about that next year.
Next year.
There's a lot of many of the creatures, let's say, have spirit form, and there is because the world is fairly benign, spiteful thoughts and feelings and could actually, because these winds are creative, if you swear like in the wrong wind, you might actually create a spark to something that appears that is like a spiteful spirit that's been lured. Oh, someone's been spiteful here. There's some of that stuff going on. It's the world reacts to people's emotions.
So it's like the butterfly effect in a way. I was a little angry here, and now someone there went.
That's a very interesting theory. Imagine you have the spirit world that's like fairly, real, and you have the butterfly effect where emotions can go. If someone is in despair, maybe this person is like, this guy is really sick and in despair, and they might think, oh, he might have been possessed by someone who is like from this. There's like a part of spirit world which is in despair and frustration, and that could be things like that. On that kind of level, rather than having a god that's having all these things. We're working with mythology and connecting it to psychology and doing all those things. And the sad thing is that the more I dive into it and specify it, the mystery might disappear a bit for me. But I must make sure that the mystery remains and everything works.
No, and people seem to be happy how you're managing the mystery here. And I think I like the idea that like nature gods, it's not one true god. It's like many people with different wills, and they can probably be angry at each other also. I don't know.
Yes,
I'm just thinking,
I have Helen, who is also my writing partner. It's good to have, because we are both writers, so we can test ideas on each other, and that is really good, because then we can instantly see how I react. Like, oh, that was good, or let's have another think on that, or this might remind me of this culture. I'm reading up a lot on Irish folklore and elves and things. It's very interesting to see. But get inspiration from religions and history everywhere. And also have this artwork, like the creatures that's being created, because it worked both ways. I might come up with an idea, me and Helen we talk about something like, how do we how does this ancestor worship work? So are they ghosts? How does ghost work? And then the artist might come up, oh, I have an idea, and they draw something, and then we sort of fire things off together, and we sort of combine it into a thing. And often by drawing something, you come up with other ideas or solutions or associations that you wouldn't think about if you're just writing it as text. Like you'd say, oh, look at the shadow. They have two shadows, these things. Why? And then that becomes interesting. So it's almost like it's more difficult to choose what not to have than to come up with new things. I'm ranting now.
No, but it's cool. And as someone says here, it's terrifying to hear about this new things because it's scary if it doesn't work. But we worked very hard 4 years. I think it's awesome. But yeah. So what players supposed to expect when they go into the game? They have this whatever big game world. Sorry, I'm Swedish. To explore, where you can both go around and just walk on roads and meet people and go to different towns, and there is this kind of underlying story that the world is changing.
Yeah, and they have to survive. I mean, it's kind of a hostile. The villages are fairly safe, the roads are safe, but out there is it's a dangerous. Nature is a dangerous place, and it's you might need to go, maybe not always alone, and definitely not out in the woods. And then when night comes, it's also kind of scary. And you have to travel fast. So you have to find food, or you have to buy food and trade for food. There's like threats that you might have to solve with violence, unless you can figure out ways to avoid it. And that's something that there's always like a risk, a threat that's very deadly. But there are ways that you can arm yourself with that is not only weapons. There are tricks, and there are spells, and there are things. So, but it can be quite harsh. But there will be options for players to be able to avoid it. So there's a bit of survival in there. And if you want to learn like more powerful magics and things, there are the different, like the wind magics and the knots. I don't know how much we've talked about that, and the different brews that you can make. And if you travel in a group, when you sit down and camp, what you eat and consume is shared by everyone around you. So it's kind of a thing like that. So yeah, you'll be traveling, exploring a world with risks, and you want to improve yourself and get better, and therefore you might need to go into nature to find plants and regions and explore places that you think, oh, this thing that I might need could be out there, but it's scary, and you might run away because that was terrifying. When you come back a bit more prepared, and then you might involve yourself in local, troubles in the villages and like that. And I would really like a game where you can go at your own pace. You want to rush in, I'm gonna do it, and you get knocked around a bit and come back. That's cool. If you want to take your time, that's cool too.
Yeah, and about things, I've heard that you can trade, like you have a limited amount of bag space, and then you need to like trade, and resources aren't in every part of the world. Like if I traveled long, probably have something.
Exactly. There's no currency. It's something we say, let's not have the gold coins. Let's just have things. So if you are starving and the only thing you have is a pearl, and someone has, I have watermelons. I want your pearl. You can have a watermelon. It's kind of so you want to trade for things. You want to have value items that you can trade for stuff. And if you can be a trader by, there's also some haggling skills where you can actually affect the value of things. But if you buy something maybe from a place where they make it, where it's quite cheap, and you travel far and sell it, the price is going to be higher. So you can do some trading that way. Or you find out a trader that, this woman is working on a necklace with special amber stones. She's going to give to her person that she wants. She might give you a higher price for that. So you might note that, that's a good price. I'm going to sell those things there. So there's definitely a trading game as well, in the way that it's like demand and supply and demand. And as the world expands, the further you can travel, the further, the more you can earn.
Wow.
All those little things that make sense in a world. And we want to also bring is that taking away the gold coins, because in the past days, the trading of a chicken versus a ring of sausages, it takes you away from the tropiness of how many gold coins is this thing worth. There is a value though. We thought about, let's not have any value, but when we realized we need some kind of indication that, okay, I have 4 mushrooms. Oh dear, that crescent. The swords are called crescents usually because they cultural have a shape. Okay, ask 4,000 mushrooms for that crescent. Oh, and you can, just so you understand the scale of things.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes, and the game is going to take its time. What we all like is usually a game is best in the beginning and then the mid game. But when the game scales up and everything becomes high level and the stakes are constantly rising, you're sort of rushing towards an end. I don't think we kind of enjoy that part of a game as much. So we want to try and make the middle road quite long and rewarding. If that makes any sense. Maybe it's a game to take a turn, but to keep the sweet spot as long as possible. And then being able to actually end your character, perhaps, is something we talk about. When does a character's career end? Do you choose? Does it reach an end? Do you start with something else? You might unlock something else because you ended that, or because you're gonna be able to do very different things depending on who you are. Ramble. Things like that.
It's cool. You get to think about everything from like wins and religion to trading and everything that's part of the world. I think we're going to wrap up quite soon here because I thought it's been super interesting and it's like I just want to dive into this beautiful world because it sounds amazing. And yeah, people are impressed here also in the chat. And
happy to hear it.
Sorry?
I'm happy to hear it.
Yes. Someone said, "Oh my God, great idea to be able to end your character. Let's see what that turns out." And then we had someone say here, the ever question, summer, is there more specific? And I'm like, it's summer in the broadest possible meaning. And yeah, I don't know if I can say anymore, but yeah, yeah, something like that.
Oh, to me, it's summer all year round.
Yeah, but it will be you're working very hard and you need all the time you can get, I'm thinking.
It's a dilemma, isn't it? Because the more time you spend, maybe the more polish you put in there, but also the faster it's out, the more reactions and you can work on. So it's not fun to wait. But yeah, it's and a game of this scale when is it ready? Is it? And maybe it's more ready than we think because you have your own, creation. Oh no, it's not done. Give it. I don't know. It's as many. It's up to the winds.
Yeah. So let's maybe finish with it's up to the winds, and when it's out, you will have to. Everyone who's listening will have to tell us everything and give us a lot of feedback. But yeah, it's still a while. But we'll do this monthly update. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media and all of that. And yeah, be happy. We do Steam posts if you want to read more. And thank you, Dennis, for coming on, telling us all these amazing stories from your world. I'm very happy to hear how things work.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. And here someone says, I'd rather wait longer for a better product. So no pressure, Dennis. Make something great. Okay. Do you want to say something last?
I agree with everyone. Yeah. I want a great game and I want it yesterday.
Yeah. But thank you then, everyone, for listening to us, and have a great day. Bye-bye.